Hi there, I'm Paul Lembo, systems engineer from the Northeast, and I'd like to talk to you today about the cloud as airport. And what do I mean by that? Well, normally as an engineer, when I talk to VMware champions about the cloud, we're getting very mechanistic and describing the inner IT workings of the cloud. But realistically, our champions need to spend more time talking with their business about the cloud in a way that the business can understand. Thus, the idea of describing what the cloud could do as an airport. And by analogy, in talking to them about what they understand, let's describe a family vacation to, say, an interesting place as an analogy to onboarding an application in a business environment. Now, I know when you go to talk to some of your champions about the cloud, you may get the rolling of eyes, the sighing, we've heard it all before. I thought you were an engineer, not in marketing. But that's when you have to remind them that Priceline is phase one. And in fact, while they've probably done very well virtualizing test and dev, and some of prod, all they've really done is become William Shatner. They might have saved their business a lot of money on capital, and they might even have sped up how the virtual candy store works, so the business can get those apps even more quickly. But the reality is they probably haven't advertised that enough, and the business probably still thinks that the cloud is necessary, because even though they've done a good job as Priceline, they haven't solved even half of the problems that an app onboarding cycle is likely to produce. Now let's break down the analogy of onboarding an app in the business to the family vacation. You'll see we've got four major categories, and there's a pretty good alignment between the business planning the deployment of an app and dad sitting on the couch with mom, surfing the internet looking for a good deal. Maybe he's even using Priceline. Moving on to phase two, where the business deploys the app, it's very analogous to the family trying to get through the terminal with a minimum of confusion. Third is running the app, which for the family is a heck of a lot like flying. Last is retiring or archiving the app, which is hopefully something like landing. Now to continue the story, let's look at the family and the problems that they face when they're trying to plan a trip. Now hopefully you've made the surfing easy and they can use Priceline. They can save money. But even there, are they only going to check Priceline? Nope, they're probably going to go to Expedia, maybe Travelocity. They're going to be very worried about if they're saving every dollar they can. Next, they're going to have to get through the terminal, which for any family is a heck of a lot of confusion, especially if you're traveling with a child. In my own beloved and beleaguered Logan, I had to watch a security guard take the shoes off my daughter. Now I have to assure you, that's a heck of a lot like an app getting onboarded in a business. Now flying, for the family, is that number one concern, of course, is crashing and sadly death. But if you're crying next to a child because your child is crying, you might also hope to die. Last is landing, which for a family is often the problem of not just are we going to make it in the first place, but when will we land? Anywhere near where we were supposed to land? And in some cases with bad weather, where will we land? As folks who fly into Logan know, oftentimes we'll end up routed somewhere else to avoid the lovely weather of the neighborhood. Last and not least, let's take a look at the app and the solution that the VMware Cloud offers. Now the nice thing about the planning phase, if you're flying VMair, is that we can create a self-service app store. That Apple Store experience is so much of what people want, where they feel empowered to go and get their app themselves. An idealized Priceline where they only have to check one page. Next would be actually deploying the app. And here, I'd like to talk about the property of ones. Imagine you go to the airport in just one car. There's no traffic. You get to the terminal and there's just one gate. There's only one security guard waiting for just your family. That onboarding process in the terminal is painless. That same app store experience can be had in the deployment phase. A virtual app, multiple N-tier apps deployed as one thing conveniently. Next, the actual running of the app. And we have the beautiful harmony of fault tolerance and multi-tenancy. No longer do you have to worry if you're stuck next to a fat person. No longer do you have to worry if the plane might suddenly crash. With FT Air and its tenet of multi-tenancy, we can actually put two planes next to each other and avoid most forms of planned and unplanned sudden death. Multi-tenancy gives you the ability to have a virtual plane all to yourself and not worry about your neighbor. Last, we've got retirement and the open virtual format, so you don't have to worry where you end up. You can get where you need to go. We know you have many choices when flying, and we'd like to thank you for choosing VMair.